Hi there. Another day, another video, and another video where my bangs are not cooperating with me. Oh my gosh. You caught me filming on a day where it's like my second hair day. So I wash my hair every other day, right? And this is my second day. And sometimes when I sleep funny or I don't brush my bangs right when they're wet, they do a crazy thing or they part. So this is the aftermath of that. This is my unwashed hair day. You're welcome. I feel like this is the most writer-ish, writerly looking I've ever looked in a video before because I have my natural hair kind of rocking these semi weird waves. I'm wearing very minimal makeup. I've been doing this thing now that I'm exercising again where I only put on some lip gloss, mascara, and then for my base, I just use the Lumi Glow primer and just put it all over just to give my skin a little refresh. So that's what I'm doing today. So let me know if it works, if I look more authentic as a writer because I look somewhat disheveled. I don't know. Anyway, so speaking of writers and speaking of writing, this is another writing focused video. Most of my videos tend to be very writing focused, but today I wanted to talk about writer's block and some things you could do to get out of said writer's block. So if you're interested in this information, just keep on watching. Okay, sorry for the chaotic intro. Writer's block. So basically how I define writer's block is any moment where I feel absolutely stuck in my writing or my creative process where the ideas are not flowing, the frustration is building, and the need to bang my head against the wall is ever increasing. And this is something that is, inevitable. Even really experienced professional writers deal with this, and writer's block can come from a multitude of places. It could come from like overall fear that maybe your work isn't good enough, these feelings of perfectionism, like, oh, I just have to keep editing as I go and it's not right yet, blah, blah, blah. Procrastination is another one. That might be mine, where you're like actively avoiding writing because of some deeper thing going on, right? We're human, right? We're creatives, but we're also human, and this is just a natural thing to experience. So don't be too hard on yourself if you are experiencing this. In my opinion, that kind of makes it worse when you are stuck in this cycle of like negative thoughts about yourself and about your writing. It only kind of prolongs the writer's block issue. So just keep that in mind. While this is going on, how do you get out of it? How do you cure writer's block? Cure being the idea that this won't happen again, but like it probably will. But here are some things that will help you learn how to manage that. So one of the things that's important to have is a committed writing schedule. It doesn't have to be devoting all of your time 24/7 to writing, right? Even if you have a day job or a different job than what you do and you want to write either for like a hobby or you want to push out projects in addition to your already busy day, you should still make the time to try to write maybe every day. And if you can't do every day, try to do as much time as you can. So I know some people who work a 9 to 5 but then get up early and write at least like 200 words a day. Nothing crazy, maybe a page or at most, or like 1,000 words at most, and then they keep it pushing. Eventually over time that will build into a full-length book or a full-length novel over the span of like how many, I guess that would take you probably like, well, it depends on what genre you're writing, right? Like if you do 1,000 words a day and you're writing a romance novel, you can get that done in 40 days, right? 40 to 50 days, because I think that's the length for a romance novel. If you're writing fantasy and stuff, obviously that's longer. If you do the math, it is less intimidating when you think about it that way. 1,000 words a day, if you're writing a high fantasy that's like 120,000 words, then you get it done in 120 days. So yeah. So it helps to have this sort of schedule preset, and also making yourself write even when you don't feel quote unquote inspired, just to make it like a muscle memory type thing or like a daily practice. Again, writing is a skill, and just like playing basketball or learning how to swim fast or anything like that, it is important to have some sort of muscle memory when it comes to writing, or like a familiar place, getting into the zone as it will, where you do practice these skills every day and then you improve over time. That's why they made us do so much schoolwork in elementary school and like other things to practice these writing skills, to build up a natural sense for grammar, punctuation, but also for creativity as well. So that really helps. If you don't have that already thing and you're just kind of loose, freewheeling it, loosey goosey, I highly recommend having some sort of schedule that makes sense for you to help you kind of regulate the writing process so you experience less writer's block. Something else that helps, that can help you, is reading other people's work or working with other people in general. If you're a writer, you should be a reader. I think most people get into writing because they love reading and they love books. But if you're not already an avid reader and you're trying to write, I think it would benefit you to read from other books in your genre, whatever you're trying to do, or just read in general, but especially in your genre. So for me, I write a lot of scary things. So it helps me to consume media that is scary or read scary books in general. One of the things that I found in my particular genre is that there's a lot of people who do callbacks or reference things that are already predetermined by like the classics of horror, I guess. A lot of what I do is like supernatural horror, but I like to bring in eldritch horrors, right? Or something that feels like that at least. And that was popularized by Lovecraft. And so people have been building off of Lovecraft in their own stories, and they've been doing it in different iterations. So it helps to read what other people have done. One, because you don't want to do like the exact same thing, right? But if you do, it might help you work out something that you've been struggling with your own project. Be like, oh, this is how they fix that problem. Okay, well then how can I be inspired by that to fix my own problem? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying like plagiarize other people's solutions to your problem, but it might help you realize different mannerisms to go about solving whatever problem you might have with your plot, with a character, whatever that's going on. So again, it's about knowing what you write and what you want to write. So it does help to consume a lot of horror, or in my case, a lot of horror or supernatural books in general. But also it kind of helps if you want to try to create differently, to be somewhat of a casual reader in other genres too. When I have all my horror fixes, I sometimes will grab like a cozy murder mystery, or even like I've started branching into romance a little bit. I have a fairy romance series that I'm reading right now. So it kind of helps, right? It'll help you unlock things in your brain that you were like, oh, like, because the fairy series I'm reading about, that could naturally be like, oh, well, what if I do a fae horror story now? Yay. And it feels like a folk horror or something. Something you might not have thought about recently. And now you're like, oh, I'm reading a romance with this type of creature or monster in it. What if I turned that on its head and made it like a little bit darker than what this book is, right? So you never know when your inspiration is going to strike like that, but it does help to read other people's work. Likewise, I think it would be really helpful if, and not everybody can do this, and I understand that, but if you live someplace where you know other people who are writers or other people who are interested in becoming writers, it might help to like have a sounding board to talk to people about, to work through your ideas verbally. I know that helps me so much. You have no idea. And sometimes that can be really intimidating with other writers. But even if you don't have another writer, having a soundboard in your life is great. Like my husband hears all my ideas, and I love the feedback he gives me because it's so well thought out and poignant, and he often has a different perspective than I do. And so hearing him, the way he thinks about things and what he read, like if he writes something, how he interprets things versus how I do, can be really, really helpful to my own writing. So obviously, if you do this with other people who are writers, they tend to have the same, if not more, tools in their kit to really work through the nitty gritty of writing problems specifically. So that might be helpful as well. And you could find these people, like I found some other writer friends through a writing conference, but you could also find them on social media if you follow other writers online or in your community, or people you want to write, or like even people hate on them, but even like those fanfic sites or whatever, there's people writing fanfic for free. So even if you want to connect with people that way, like there's a million ways to find other writers and other creatives. So just have at it. One of my big things, and I think this feels counterintuitive to a lot of people, but is to actually like take breaks and like don't write for a minute. When I was struggling with a certain short story that's going to be in my upcoming short story collection, I knew I wanted to write something that was clown focused. I hate clowns, but for some reason I'm gravitating towards circus aesthetics, and clowns happen to be part of that. So I wanted to write a clown story. And because this short story collection takes place in the 2010s, I wanted to do something about those damn clown sightings that we had all over in 2016. I don't know if you guys remember that. I was in college at the time. And in 2016, there was people dressing up as clowns and just doing creepy things like all over the country. It was like kind of like a meme but a very scary meme, like potential threatening meme. And I remember there was a clown sighting at my college, and people were like freaking out about that because they're like, oh my God, is this like a serial killer, or is this just like a weirdo? Like, what's going on? So yeah, people are just like dressing up as clowns and being scary and like staring at people and doing all this crazy stuff at that time. So I wanted to write a story based on that. And I had a good starting point. Like I got about halfway through, and then I was like, well, now what? Because the way I write stories is like I have a little kind of like a formula to it where I, set up a problem, the climax, and then the whatever the solution is, the resolution. But then I also include like some sort of twist typically in my stories, just like a little unexpected. And I had a problem trying to find the twist. Where's the twist? Where's this coming from? I was frustrated on that for the longest time. I remember just being so angry about it. And I tried to write other things in the meantime, but nothing was really like jolting me back, right? Until I went to this gelato place here in Chicago. And I live on the north side of Chicago. I'm going to plug this gelato place because I think it's really unique and interesting, and more people should go to it. They also, I don't know if it's all vegan gelato, but they do have a lot of vegan options. I'm going to put pictures from the trip here, and I don't remember the name of it. So I will put the name of it in the text on screen right here. But it is a circus themed gelato place that is so close to me, a couple of train stops away. It's in Lincoln Square. And it is a circus themed, but it's owned and operated by circus people, I guess. I don't know what the technical word to call them is, like performers, I guess. They have performances there. They have magic shows there. They have a guy who swallows swords there. I'm not sure who the owner is, but I remember when I was there, I've been there twice. Twice? Yes, I've been there twice. So once I went they have scary movie screenings or like horror movie screenings every now and then. I went there to watch a horror movie. But then the first time I went there casually just to have some gelato, some ice cream. And they have all these funky flavors too. But I remember, I think it's the person who owns it, or maybe they're just like a prominent figure there, but they're like covered in tattoos, like head to toe in tattoos. They have body modifications to make them look a little bit more like reptilian. And they're really nice, right? But it was just all that. But not only that, inside the shop, like they have all these like circus chairs, or they have like bits of parts of carnival rides that you can sit in as like a booth or a chair. And then they also have a room that's dedicated to something called gaffs. And previously I was unfamiliar with this term. I knew what this concept was, but I was unfamiliar with the exact term. So a gaff is like those questionable questionable carnival attractions where it's like a mermaid monkey thing, where somebody takes like a baby monkey a baby monkey thing, like preserved baby monkey, and sticks a fishtail onto it, and all of a sudden it is like a mermaid baby, right? Or what are some other ones, like cursed object, right? Like a cursed book or a rattle or whatever, or showing the corpses of conjoined twins, or just like weird stuff like that, right? Like that is hard to pin down if it's real or not. And I don't know if you're familiar with the show. It's a cartoon. I really like it, Gravity Falls. If you remember Uncle Stan, he has like a mystery shop where it's like kind of like a tourist trap, and he does that. He like makes fake attractions and like sells this experience to tourists to be like, ooh, look how weird and spooky this is, right? And as soon as I saw that, I was like, yes, there's the twist. So I incorporated this idea of a like antique shop that had these sorts of things in it, these sorts of gaps, and put that into the story as well. And I know that you're like, killer clowns, and then like, what, this, like, what's the twist? But I won't say anything to you because you're gonna have to read the story. Plug. But then I ended up titling the piece Gaffs, right? Because it's this like man-made attraction that is trying to trick people into thinking it's real. And that's kind of like how I felt the killer clown meme kind of was, where people were taking like dollar store costumes or whatever and turning themselves into these creatures, to be marveled at, right, by people online and like feared by people in public, right? So that was like how I was treating that, and that's where my inspiration was literally like going out to get gelato and ice cream. But I really feel like way to be inspired is to just go out and live your life. I think people should try to search for like new experiences, just to really put themselves out there, because a lot of that like really influences my work. If we could all take writing retreat trips and, you know, travel to all these different states or countries or whatever, that would be like the dream. But I recognize it's like not possible for everyone, but like there's probably a funky place in your neighborhood or a funky place in your town somewhere, right? For me, I'm lucky because I live in such a big city in Chicago that there's always something going on and like something to see and these like small businesses popping up. But even in my hometown, I found inspiration there just for some of the wacky places that have been popping up recently. So you never know. You never know what's going to inspire you. You never know what's going to make that click in your head and be like, ah, there it is. You know, so even a conversation with a friend, right, or a relative can help like spark that. So yeah, if you need help with the writer's block, go to a carnival themed gelato shop. Also, I just want to support them because they do other things in the neighborhood. They like actually give internships to people who want to go into like the performing arts. I think even in particular, if it's more of like acrobatics or like circus, traditional circusy type stuff, they have internships there for those folks as performers. And sometimes when we have little festivals around here, they always have somebody out doing stuff. Like at the Apple Festival down in Lincoln Square, they had a girl eating like bugs or something. It was really cool. Maybe I'm the only person that thinks that's cool, but I think what they're doing is interesting, and they're keeping a certain art form alive, and that is exciting to me. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, there's that. Help them out. There you go. We. In addition to taking breaks, sometimes it's helpful if you have a different creative hobby. For me, when I first started writing and I had all the feelings and emotions and crazy, because I started writing in the pandemic. So when I had all that going on in my life, and I would have frustrations with writing, I often turned to baking. And I got really good at baking, let me tell you that. During the pandemic, I learned how to do quite a bit. I can make pies. I made a lot of pies. I learned how to make a chocolate lava cake that is pretty good in my opinion. So sometimes it helps me, like if I'm in a place and I need to shift my focus and do something else creatively, and kind of like it still feels like you're working similar muscles but you're doing a different thing. And if you have something that you like genuinely enjoy and it's kind of like a default hobby for you, that also might be helpful, because then you can like zone out a bit while you do it, I guess. So baking is definitely one of mine. Baking and cooking. I love cooking. That was something that I never thought that I would really like, because I was so like anti-domesticity for a big chunk of my life, because of just like gender dynamics that I've seen in my past as a child. I didn't really want to embrace those as a femme presenting person, as a woman. But then I moved out and lived on my own, and like that became like a necessity. That's like a skill to know, is like how to cook and feed yourself to stay alive. So I definitely did that, and it's something I really enjoy. And now, like even in my neighborhood, when we have our block parties, I'm like the cookie lady. And for book club, I've made cookies and people have loved them. So like that's kind of my thing now. So yeah, for me, if I'm stuck with writing, sometimes baking helps, or taking a break to do that. I also have adult coloring books here, or coloring books, where I just like color and like zone out, and that can help, at least even if it's not like helping you with ideas necessarily. It does help regulate your emotional state. So like maybe like once you're calmer, you can come back to the writing and see things a little bit more clearly. So it's like multifaceted, right, of like how you solve a writer's block emotionally and then like logically with like plot points. So sometimes the coloring helps and relaxing helps. I've been trying to get back into visual art, because I used to paint and do all that stuff, but like it's hard because painting is so messy and I don't want to make a mess in my apartment or in my condo. So that's another option if you like painting. Some people sew, some people knit, but like a bunch of different things. Just try to do something you really enjoy, that unlocks that creative part of your brain still, but gives you enough space to breathe. Likewise, I know people, when they feel like they need a breather, they go on walks, and sometimes like revelations will come to them on a walk. Again, we have a donut shop close to my house that has great donuts and a great mango smoothie. So when it's warm, sometimes I just go and get a donut and get a smoothie and come back and like see if something is percolating in the brain. I've had like realizations come to me in the shower. So even doing acts of self-care, as basic as it seems, can help you, like if you're in the shower washing your hair or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh dang, that works. Sometimes when we get our brains in a more relaxed state, that's when the better ideas come to us. So it's something to keep in mind when you're like in the middle of writer's block and you're freaking out about things like that. So yeah, those are some of my tips about like how to overcome writer's block, or how to really get inspiration when you're really feeling stuck in your writing process. I hope some of these tips helped you out, and I hope that you can implement them going forward. If you found this video helpful, feel free to like it, comment something down below, share it with a friend, or subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please. That would help me out a lot. And until next time, thanks. Bye.